All right, welcome, CvCISO podcast. This is episode 22 of the CvCISO podcast, or so I'm told. We'll have to validate that. I mean, I do trust Meg. Yeah, I mean, I really do trust Meg, but
No one really knows, right?
things happen, right? Yeah.
Definitely.
And there's really no way for us to
Oh,
find out
jeez.
either.
Well, I think we have some
This will just be a
recordings.
mystery forever.
What's that?
We can be forever.
Oh, all right.
I said we can be forever
what?
22.
But why does my body feel like it's
Lord knows
95?
I've always been.
No.
Would you like me to
actually
list
know
off the
why.
reasons?
All right. Well, for our listeners, there's a couple things, for today's podcast. Number one is, I had some news this week at Security Studio, and anytime something happens, and I always have the saying that empty spaces always get filled. So if there's an empty space in the communication, I would expect that it got filled, and it may have gotten filled with rumors. It might have gotten filled with just assumptions, whatever. So you'll hear it straight from my mouth about what happened at Security Studio this week. People that know me know I'm very, very transparent. Unless I actually have something to hide, I won't hide anything. So we'll talk about that. And then it's Jordon's topic this week. So we'll get to Jordon's topic after that. So real quick, at Security Studio, if you didn't hear the news, earlier this week I made the tough decision to let they're all great people, but a lot of people go at Security Studio. And so then the rumors started to fly a little bit. Not really fly. I think most people, I think the responsible thing to do when you have questions is to go to the source if you can get to it. Then there were rumors, well, Security Studio shutting down is, what's happening with Security Studio. And I'll tell you the same thing I told numerous other people. Number one, the people that were let go, it was not for cause at all. They're fantastic people. I love them. I'm going to miss them. Every single one of them did everything that was asked of them, and they did it with integrity. And so if you know somebody who was laid off from Security Studio, I can't endorse them any more than I do. They're fantastic people. And I would, if I were you, I would put them on the top of the list of people to interview, for whatever positions you have open that might fit for them. Because there were 5 people let go, and every single one of them is fantastic. So I'll start there. What's happened with Security Studio? So when we started in 2017, we launched with a product and a platform that was really a lot more cutting edge, right? There weren't other competitors in the market. We launched as an information security risk management tool, right? Not just assessments, but risk management. Well, over the years and through a series of, honestly, mistakes that I've made over the years, I've never run a software company before. We lost our focus, Security Studio, where we started to really lose focus on what the platform was intended for, how it was going to be, awesome for our customers. We lost a little bit of focus on what our target market is. So just things, right? I use the analogy of a car. What we were doing was really driving a car that needed some repairs, but we were doing it while we were driving the car. And the prudent thing to do, and the thing that's best for everybody, including our customers and our partners and our CvCISO community, is to pull the car over, repair the car, and then get the car back on the road. And so that's essentially what we did, or the decision last week. So I think what it means for customers, what it means for partners, what it means for our CvCISO community is all good things, right? We'll be focusing on getting more features into the platform more quickly, making the software higher quality, quicker, focusing more on who our target audiences are so that we can hear what they need, insert what they need, support what they need to grow their business, secure their business. So what you'll see is a complete refocus of Security Studio. And then once we feel like we've got the problems repaired, we'll then relaunch. And what relaunch means doesn't mean that we're closing the doors and then launching later. It means that we'll start hiring again in the future. So what Security Studio is focused on today really is ourselves, right? Rather than going out and getting new customers and aggressively trying to grow the business, we're pulling back, focusing on ourselves before we go back out and do that again. Our current customers, our current partners, the CvCISO community, you should see nothing but positive changes from this because we will be focusing on you. Rather than trying to get new customers and focus on you, the focus is on you. So it's a tough decision. It's always hard because you want to do the right thing. You want to make the right decisions for the mission, the right decisions for everybody involved. And it was the right decision. And I'm very excited now that you've gotten through some of the hardest parts of this. I'm very excited about what the future brings. So hopefully that answers some of the questions. If you have additional questions, you can always email me directly. You can email Meg directly. You can email Kevin directly. And we'll make sure you get all the answers. You'll get nothing but, the real shit. So.
Can I ask a common follow-up question that people ask me when I've had a handful of people reach
Timeline
out?
for what?
Is there a timeline?
So we launched for the current customers, unless maybe on the support side, they almost kind of don't want us to relaunch, in a way, because we will be focusing on you currently. The relaunch really means that we start investing in and going after growth. That's what the relaunch really is. Otherwise, nothing should change. I would assume that maybe certain support phone calls, emails might take a little bit longer to get answered, but they'll probably be answered really, really well for you. So the timeline is what we're working on right now is really digging in on development, accelerating our development processes. If there's more investment required in development, we'll make those investments. That's happening now. We're engaging with a third party to do a really good, unbiased analysis of target market. I'm a security guy, so I'm not awesome at understanding target markets. So you go out and reach, and get help for stuff like that. In terms of going back to aggressive or, focusing on any aggressive growth, I would maybe say next summer if I was guessing right now. We're not going to move that date. We're not going to move it up for the sake of moving it up. We're going to move it up when the time is right, when we actually fix the things and we all feel confident that this is the best. That's when we'll do it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, man.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, buddy.
Yep. Thank you, Evan.
I have a tremendous amount of respect for you, and those decisions are tough. So I appreciate the transparency and your willingness to.
Thank you. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't feel like it's integrity, when you're on the receiving end of the news. But man, I made some phone calls, afterwards because I love these people, man, and none of that changed, right? It's just you have to do the right thing, and the emotions I think are high, but I hope and I pray that somewhere down the road that they'll realize that this was the right decision for them as well, and hopefully we can still have a good relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a client appreciation event not that long ago, and I was talking to a guy at one of our larger clients that I've been doing business with for a long time. He was with me, and so if anyone knows some of my story, I've had ups and downs in business, and I think every business does. So, but I had to make a decision similar to this. But I was talking to him about, he was my main contact at a large company I was supporting as a managed service provider, and it was the company that I lost. I lost that client, and I had been working with them for many years, and they and then I lost them, and it it rippled through my company, so I had to make some really tough decisions like that. But it led me to even better opportunities. I'm in a better place today. I would have just been doing the same thing, like with your car analogy.
Yeah.
I would have been just driving a broken car for the rest of my life, unless something happened that shifted me to make an uncomfortable decision. And so I was talking to him about that. Sometimes, that uncomfortable thing, it's what you need, because you'll just kind of stay stuck on the same road. And it's almost that little nudge to be like, hey, I got something better over here, but you're not going to see it unless I kind of,
That's some good wisdom, man. Thank you for
make it
sharing that.
uncomfortable for you.
Yeah.
Because it's like when you make those tough decisions, and being a Christian, I pray about it, and seeking the right answer. I don't want to make the wrong answer. I mean, I don't know if there's different leaders who have different motivations, but I don't think there's any leader who wants to make crappy decisions, so you do a lot of soul searching, a lot of, whatever. And then you make the decision, and then there's that, oh crap, did I make the right decision? So then you start looking for like signs, but like you're saying, I think it's that's when you pick your head up and you're like, oh, that's the way to go. You know what I mean? And sometimes you make that decision, and then you're looking for the validation, like, did I really screw things up? So you start looking around and you're like, oh no, it's over there. So to your point, I think, yeah. And I think a lot of times the difficult, correct decisions to make are oftentimes not popular. And sometimes and oftentimes they don't make sense at the time, but it's the right decision. And so you look for that validation afterwards of, all right, I made the decision, now what?
Right. Now what? And that, that leads,
Yeah.
I had a few different topics. I want to talk about everything all the time. So, we can't have enough episodes for us to talk about all the things that we could talk about. But that just reminded me of a topic that I do want to bring up at some point, which is radical acceptance. And I just reviewed this idea with our team, had a team meeting, but I got some of the material from actually Mental Health Hackers, which I got introduced to from you, Evan, when you were talking about them over the pandemic and stuff. So they have a site, and I was like, okay, because I always want to talk about mental health stuff. Yeah, at least to some extent, keep that as a ongoing topic, and that was one of them. So radical acceptance, at some point, maybe when we're doing a mental health type episode, that might bubble up to the surface. But it's that idea of, hey, what happened happened. Here's where we're at. Now what? You have to accept reality before you can change reality.
Right. And I think a note of encouragement, not only to you, Evan, but also to the people that were let go. I think all of us have experienced some form of being let go, whether it was a reduction in staff or a job that you just knew that you needed to leave and go somewhere else. Like, to me, that's, you're all of a sudden in a place where you've got to find a job. There's lots of different ways that can look, but I think in my career, it's always resulted in something better. And, it's never easy when you're going through what you're going through, but God's always made it clear, like, this is why that happened and what I have in store for you. So.
All right. So my focus today, my general theme might be more of a marketing, selling aspect of CvCISO, but we'll see, because I kind of have a couple different topics. I think what we'll start with, we talked a little bit about defining things last week. This week we're going to play a little game, and maybe it'll just be a fun little game. Maybe it'll lead to some interesting discussion, but I want to define some terms.
You're going to what?
I'm going against Evan on this game.
What's that?
Am I going up against Evan on this game?
I mean, there's no wrong answer. People define things however they want. You just throw out what you think your best.
I think he's afraid to compete with me. You wouldn't do peg when I was in Mexico.
I wouldn't
Wouldn't
I
play
would not play you in
chess
chess.
when
I
I was
suck
in
at chess, but
Mexico.
I would play you in bags, and
No.
I'll even play with my eyes closed if you want. And left-handed. All right. Well,
High
I was,
confidence.
I
Game
was texting your
on.
husband
You're going
yesterday,
down.
and you were on that thread. We got to figure out the next time to get you down here, and then we'll do that because we love having you here to visit.
Yeah.
Some awesome memories with you and your husband down here. And Jordon, we got to get you down here, whatever it takes.
We
Man.
always
We
have-
would have so much fun.
So it's. I would love to. It's in my future for sure. After I mean, you're sitting here teasing me with these beautiful photos.
Yeah, this is where I'm sitting right now.
Sunsets to die for.
There's the American flag,
goodness.
just in case.
Yep.
There's the American flag in case people are just wondering why I'm
Succeed.
only representing Mexico right now. I accept this challenge.
All right, are you guys ready? Do you accept this challenge? These are.
Let me
I'm
get
going to
Google
purposely
ready.
answer some of them wrong, just for the hell of it.
All right. Well, let's start with. So these are what you might call buzzwords. And let's start with. Man, this is a. Let's just start with maybe the most popular one these days. Actually, it's probably being overtaken by some. I'll just get to the point.
I would
Zero
answer
trust.
that if I fucking trusted you.
Zero trust.
I have zero trust for you.
You have zero trust.
I can tell you what the industry says, and I can tell you what it really is, but I don't know. Let Meg answer. Because I'm more interested in what you think it is.
What does zero trust mean to you?
You're more interested. What I think it is concept that there should be zero trust. You should anticipate that something will happen, and how, when, where, and why is the unknown, but something will happen. That's my.
So in some ways, you're saying zero trust. The definition of zero trust is in the name. Zero trust.
Yes.
No trust. Not a single trust.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's I've always called it default deny, which means I don't trust anything unless I explicitly trust it. Right? So something has to establish trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think of your own personal relationships, right? Some guy walking down the street that you've never met before. You don't invite him over to your house and, come sleep on my couch. You know what I mean? You have to establish trust. And so zero trust is, I don't trust anything unless I've established the trust. So it requires, and then people say, well, with what? With the network, with applications, with access rights, with everything. Everything that's configurable should be, by default, deny. And then, yeah, that's what zero trust is for me.
Yeah. Well, and so, based on what you're saying there,
Exactly.
it's not really zero trust. It's zero trust at first. Then it's established.
I think a better
trust.
word, a
So maybe
better term would be justified trust. Or validated trust.
Validated trust.
You heard it here first, folks. We got a new buzzword. Better than zero trust. Validated trust.
It makes more sense as a newbie, like
and
that
you can
would have a
thank
different
Forrester
meaning
for giving
than
you
me.
that stupid
to me
name,
than
zero
zero
trust. It was Forrester who first came up with it, because there's an analyst at Forrester, and if you look him up on LinkedIn, he considers himself the inventor of zero trust.
Nice.
He does.
So he considers himself, and so he brags about that?
He came up with the term zero trust. So, like, I invented zero trust. It's like, okay, first of all, the concept is as old as, human beings are. So you didn't invent it. You gave it a name, and you gave it a name that's not even accurate. So there you go.
So I'll tell you what ChatGPT says. So you guys are up against ChatGPT. Let's see if
Well,
ChatGPT got it right. ChatGPT says zero trust is a security model based on the principles of never trust, always verify. It assumes that threats could be internal or external, so verification is required for every request, whether it comes from inside or outside the network. It focuses on strict identity verification, least privilege
And that's
access, and continuous
somewhat,
monitoring.
the thing, we overcomplicate everything in this damn industry. Nobody who's not a security person will ever read that and go like, oh, okay. And not just that, you overcomplicate it. Number two, because it is complicated, but what it actually is not complicated. And number two, the definition didn't even encompass everything. When you say zero trust, it's like everything. The applications that I install, the processes that are running on your computer, the access, what it has access to, what has access to it, nothing. You trust nothing until it's validated. So I don't know. Screw ChatGPT.
So quick golden nugget. If you could share a golden nugget of how would you start as a vCISO? How would you think about zero trust, and how would you implement it? Like, where would you start?
If you want to do it right,
super complicated.
In most cases, it's start over. And nobody wants to hear that. Who wants to do that? And so what you see is a lot of zero trust implementations that are half-assed. And it's an ongoing process. And that process, will never end because one, you're trying to keep up with the current things, like the new technologies that you bring into the environment, the new people, the new whatever. Meanwhile, you have to go back and it's almost like the security studio thing, right? You have to pull the car off the road to fix the crap that's already there. So unless you have a very simple environment, the right way to do it and the way to get there the fastest would be to start over, would be to build a new environment with zero trust principles implemented and then migrate things over into that new environment. If you were going to start with zero trust in an existing environment, you have to start with a very, very, very detailed asset inventory. I need to know every piece of hardware, every piece of software, every person, everything that constitutes this environment. And then once you do that, then you can start breaking things down into smaller pieces and figuring out how you're going to put the processes in place. But yeah, that's the thing about zero trust. It's a buzzword, and 99% of the people have no idea how much work it actually is, especially when you've been doing it wrong for so long. So yeah, it's crazy how many people, I was at the Blue Ribbon Commission on IT for the state of Minnesota a couple of years ago. And I don't think they'll invite me back because I think a lot of times people don't want to hear the truth anyway. But the first two speakers were talking about zero trust. And the CISO at the time, Rohit Tandon, asked the second speaker, where do I get started with zero trust? And he didn't answer the damn question. And I was the last speaker, so I added a slide to my deck about this is where you get started with zero trust. One, to poke, like, why are you out here selling something when you can't do it? I don't think you even know what it is. But everybody's talking about it, so let's get, we can't miss the boat. Yeah, it's frustrating because zero trust is, apply it to your own life, your own daily life, in your house, day to day. If you were going to implement zero trust correctly, what are the processes for how you trust people that come into your house, that show up at your house, trusting everything you buy, right? Doing a risk analysis. What does this mean? What kind of trust should we have for the shampoo I just bought? Can my daughter, my toddler use this shampoo? Well, no, it's dangerous because it's going to get in her eyes and whatever. You know what I mean? So you have to go through all these analysis and like, okay, I can't trust her with this. I have to separate her from this. It's only trusted by dad and, whatever. It's a shitload of work, man.
But you're right. that made me think that like maybe this is such a hard thing because as you were talking about that, like your daily life, there's probably a lot of people like me. Like I'm a very trusting person. I trust first, until I got a reason not to, which is probably it makes it challenging then to kind of flip that,
Well,
I don't know. It's a
very,
hard
very
thing
key point
'cause you just
right
want to
there,
trust.
because that's
I'm
not
with
the
you,
name of the
Jordon.
game. When we talk about information security, it's not zero trust. The name of the game for information security is risk management. I have a different risk tolerance than you do, than Meg does, right? So there are things that I will do in my life that you would never do in your life. You would never accept that risk. Having different risk tolerances there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is not understanding the risks and not accepting them. You know what I mean? So when you go through life, and yes, I scuba dive. Like, let's take that one, for instance. I scuba dive. For me, that's an accepted risk. Anything that could happen while I'm scuba diving, that's an accepted risk. Other people, I would never do that. Too dangerous. Not ever going to accept that risk. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having two different. What's wrong is if I were to go scuba diving and never consider the risks. Just go out there and boom, here I go. Well, yeah, you're going to die, idiot. Take that same thing, then apply it to, technology, apply it to IT, apply it to whatever. What most people are doing is scuba diving without any preparation. And you may not die now, but eventually you will die because that's dangerous. And so some companies may decide, I want to do the scuba diving thing. Okay, well, here's the right process to do that. Here's how you manage risk around scuba diving. So that's why zero trust as just a principle, and we're just going to implement zero trust regardless, is super dangerous for your business. I would never do it. If you have done risk assessments and you understand the risks of the current environment and you're comfortable with that, keep rolling. Because there's also the financial risk. I mean, how much is it going to cost me if I implement zero trust? I'm going to lose opportunity cost. It's going to hurt my business potentially. In most cases, if most companies were to ask me, should we implement zero trust? In most cases, my answer would probably be no, unless you're going to isolate like your most critical assets, take your most critical assets and put them into a zero trust sort of environment and let the rest of the business operate as normal. Maybe something like that, but otherwise you're never going to get the return on that investment.
Right.
Yeah.
And you made a good point earlier where it's like zero trust. Like there's people out there that think they're doing zero trust because of the buzzword, and it's like, tools out there that really are application whitelisting tools, which is just a piece of zero trust. And people are thinking, oh yeah, I implemented this tool, so now I have zero trust in place. But it's not the philosophy.
Yeah, and I would much rather have no security and know it than have a false sense of security, because the dynamics of security too also require prevention, detection, and response. And if I have a false sense of security, I think I've got prevention pretty much locked down, so I'm not watching anymore. There's no detection, and then therefore there will be no response, potentially, right? Unless you understand how this all wraps together. Whereas if I didn't implement anything, so like take your front door, for instance. I leave my front door unlocked, but I'm watching the front door all the time. I have no security. You can walk right through my front door all the time, but there's somebody there. There's something there watching it with an instant response. There's a guy that's going to come out of the bathroom with an M16 and shoot you the minute you walk through that door. Okay? I didn't prevent them from breaching, but I had a hell of a detection and response, apparatus in place. So, that's the other thing about, myopic views on information security is you have this false sense of security. I bought this thing. I'm good. Maybe, but probably not. Maybe good in this one little part, right, of information security. It's like pen testing. So many people want to do pen testing. And I use like the, when you do the pen testing, it's a narrow scope. So let's say, in a house like this, my second door window, super flippin' secure. Ain't nobody ever, ever, ever going to get through that second floor window because it's been pen tested the crap out of. We put in controls, never coming in. The front door is unlocked. The side door is unlocked. The garage door is unlocked. But then nobody going through that second floor. And that's the risk of not being able to put information security risk into context. Right? It's not going to, because we're bucket people. We like to put things in buckets because that's how we organize and makes things make sense. So the thing about information security is it's in all of your buckets. It doesn't go in a bucket. It's all your buckets. So anyway, you got me preaching a little bit there. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to remember if I, get out to Mexico to knock on your front door first before I enter.
Yeah.
I just open it and say, honey, I'm home.
You don't even have to
Call off the MC. So you brought up another buzzword. So let's move on to penetration testing.
All right, Meg, you can go first.
What is penetration testing?
All right, me going first. Pen testing is trying to infiltrate a network or a system of some sort, it's basically different exercises to try to get into or breach an environment, to find the loopholes that exist, the gaps that exist to keep an environment secure.
And me, I like to put things in terms that, simplify everything we do. So like zero trust, I said, it's like default deny. Pen testing is hacking yourself. That's what it is. You may hire somebody to hack yourself, or you may hack yourself, but it's hacking yourself. And you might hack yourself a certain application. You might hack yourself physically, like try to get a physical, pen test, a web application, whatever. But it's essentially just hacking yourself.
What do you think of the idea of automated pen tests? I feel like there's companies out there offering automated.
Well, any good pen tester knows, if you're talking technical penetration testing, any good pen tester knows that we automate as much of the process as we can, right? We use tools to do, say port scanning. We'd use tools to do vulnerability scanning. We use tools. Those are all parts of a pen test. But then you get to a point in your penetration testing where there are decision points that have to be made that only humans can make. Your eye isn't there yet, and it won't be there for a while, to make those real decisions on what the hell does this do. Because there's a second part to penetration testing that's really important, and that's curiosity. When you do something and you get the results back from maybe running a tool, and you're like, I wonder what would happen if I did this. I wonder what would happen if I did that. So this creativity piece, you also won't be able to automate. So I think those tools can help you do the busy work, that vulnerability that we all do, but it's never going to satisfy as a full penetration test. It's bullshit.
Good. Well, ChatGPT, let's see what ChatGPT says. ChatGPT says penetration testing or ethical hacking, they're saying that's, they're synonymous, is a simulated cyber attack conducted by security professionals to identify and exploit vulnerabilities in systems, networks, or applications. The goal is to uncover security weaknesses before malicious hackers can exploit them.
The problem with that definition is it doesn't have to be done by security professionals.
ChatGPT,
Anybody can do it. You can test your own. But how are you going to know how unless you try?
Anybody that knows.
Because the thing is, one of the things that's really missed out on penetration testing that I wish was more prevalent is different perspectives. Like if I was going to break into, let's say, a web application, I would go at it from my perspective as a security professional. My wife would go at it from a different perspective. she would look at it differently, and she would try to get bypass controls without the technical knowledge, but she would look at it differently. And to get a really good penetration test, it takes multiple perspectives. That's another thing that AI, would probably struggle with. But it doesn't have to be security professionals. And the second thing about that definition that I don't like is it all implies technical. The best penetration tests are not technical. The best penetration test is for me to pick up the damn phone and ask you for your fucking password. That's a great penetration test, or a physical penetration test. It doesn't matter how good your firewall works if I can steal your server. So that definition, I think, it's not broad enough to include physical penetration testing or social engineering.
Well, social engineering.
So you heard it here, folks. ChatGPT, you lose. Wrong. How does I don't know if you're allowed to talk about this or whatever, but how does FR Secure approach pen testing? Is there a unique thing that you're allowed to talk about publicly?
First of all,
they do.
It's this. It's defining what you actually want, because there's a lot of people who ask for penetration tests, and that's not what they actually want or what they actually need. We have a rule at Security Studio or at FR Secure that if you sell a customer something that they don't need, I'll run you over with my truck. So be really careful about doing a penetration test for a company that doesn't need a penetration test. Or, like if you ask me to do a penetration test and you've never done an asset inventory or you've never done vulnerability scanning before, no, I'm not doing it. We're going to do those other things first, and then because then you'll be able to put it into context. Because if you just have me go after your second floor window and that's it, well, it didn't serve any purpose, right? If anything, we compounded the problem, because now you go home, you sleep well at night, knowing your second floor window is secured, and nobody knows the difference. So it always starts with a really good definition of what it is you actually want and what the purpose is behind it. And then it's, if you actually wanted a penetration test, we would help you determine, if you don't know, the right place to test. So we would probably, if you haven't done it already, a pretty significant amount of OSINT, open source intelligence gathering, just to make sure, that we're doing, we can put this all into context. And then, so let's say, you're mature enough that you want this web application tested, because there's also that, right? The purpose is we're only going to focus on this web application because we're going to publish this web application, and we don't want that broken. We know that all this other stuff, we need to do that other stuff, but this is going to be going into production, so we need this tested. So first, it's just a hell of a lot of busy work on scoping up front. And then that's going to dictate everything else that you do. If it's, the web application, well then, all right, that purpose would then drive the tools that we're probably going to use. Probably start with, it's like casting a wide net first, right? What's all the functions, all the things that this web application does that I can see that are exposed, and then you just start poking and prodding at each one of those. Start with, known vulnerabilities, because those are easy to automate. Like, your CVEs are easy to automate because they have specific signatures, things that, get responses back. And then the creativity thing comes into play. So it's a lot of that. We also do a lot of physical penetration testing. We have people that are really, really good at getting into places without detection. And if they do get detected, then they rely on their social engineering skills to get beyond that, picking lock, stuff like that. We break them down into those kind of three buckets. There's technical penetration testing, there's physical penetration testing, and then there's the social engineering piece. And they all have their own techniques.
When you're talking about breaking into a network, Do you typically start, with trying to get into the network, or do you typically pitch it as let's just assume we did, because we
Yeah, that would
probably
be
will, and then
pretty
start
part of
from
the scoping
inside the
too.
network,
Um,
or what?
there are tests where you start with a beacon inside the network already. You'll play out the scenario like, what's the probability, do you think, if we were to social engineer and then get a username and password, and you've got this thing out here with single factor authentication. We've reviewed your architecture. If we compromise that system, we would probably pivot from that system, so on and so forth. So I don't think, if you can help it, you don't want to just start with assumed breach. If you can help it, sometimes you do just that, right? Just put a beacon and start with the assumed breach. But I think it's a much more valuable exercise if we play through the scenario on how I got to assumed breach and then start the test. Because then you can think about all the ways that you could have potentially detected and responded to them before they got to your domain controller. So yeah, it depends. Then that's another thing about penetration testing. It's not, and that's why in automating penetration testing is there's a lot more that goes into all the possible different scenarios that you might use to get there. Just to assume that attackers are only going to do this one thing, that's not what they do.
That's why it makes sense to do what you mentioned earlier, Evan, and that is, let's focus what's the most important issue now and focus our attention there. Because there's so many different ways that you could do pen testing.
Really dangerous. Not from the fact that, you have an unskilled penetration tester who takes things down, right? Who broke things. There's that, of course, but it's also, the last thing we want to do is take your attention away from all these other fundamental foundational things so that you're focusing on this penetration test, which it may happen, but chances are much more likely that somebody's just going to walk out the door with one of your servers. You don't want to have executive management or the CISO be blinded by, the pen test because they can't put that into context with everything else. That's why I think we talk more people out of penetration tests than we actually do penetration tests for that reason.
All right. Let's see another buzzword out here. How about Nextgen?
I haven't even figured out this gen. How the hell am I going to do with the next one?
I was going to say, my mind definitely doesn't go to computers.
Do you have a friend named Jen that you're considering replacing with another friend named Jen?
Who's your next gen?
Next gen. What do you think it is, Meg?
Yeah.
I suppose whatever we think ChatGPT is going to
context.
Whatever BS we think.
Generation of
whatever BS we think ChatGPT is going to give us.
Next generation. What do I think ChatGPT is going to spit out when it comes to next gen? I don't know.
If I came to you, Meg, and I said, "Hey, you know what I think you should do for your cybersecurity program?"
Yeah, you need a next gen firewall.
It's next gen. What do you think I mean?
I think it's going to spit out a bunch of, I'll call it bullshit that your next MSP is going to sell you.
I've jaded you, Meg. I've jaded you. I'm so sorry.
That's what I think.
I take offense to that.
I've jaded you. I'm sorry for that. No. So,
and you're not wrong.
So next gen, short for next generation, is just a new generation iteration of something that you already had. And so, which would sound really cool, and it's a great sales thing. But if you didn't know how to use what you currently have, what makes you think you're going to be able to use the next version of the thing? And that's the part that really frustrates the shit out of me, because take something like firewall, right? Next-gen firewalls. Next-gen firewalls have more features. They have, not only does it do firewalling, which is the function of a firewall is to block network traffic, right? It's to segment, isolate networks. Not only does it do that, but now it does intrusion prevention. It does web application protection, all this whole list of other things, but you never used the first gen
All the
firewall
blinky
the
lights.
right way. So what makes you think you're going to be able to use the 6th generation firewall the right way with more features and more complication and more like, oh my God. And so that's the frustrating part. Like, take a firewall, because I'm a network guy and I love firewalls when they're used right. I could do a better job of firewalling with a router from 2001 than you're probably doing today with your next gen firewall, right? Just with access control lists.
Mm-hmm.
Because the basic function of a firewall is to block that traffic both directions. Ingress coming from a less trusted network into a more trusted network, and egress from the more trusted network to the less trusted network. That's the firewall, right? It's the demarcation point. Ingress, egress. Unless you've got that done, no more gens for you. You get no more gens. No more gens for you, because that is the basic function of a firewall. And so if you just keep piling on more stuff, what you're doing is you're putting Band-Aids on, bullet wounds. So
You're right. Whenever someone asks me like what the best tool is, best whatever, I always say,
hey man,
the best tool is the one you know how to use. That's that.
I mean, give
They're all
a
different. They all do
skilled
whatever.
carpenter a hammer. There's no 8th generation hammer. It's just a damn hammer, right? And what can they build with a hammer? So a tool in the hands of somebody who's skilled in using that tool is much more valuable than, if there was such a thing as a next-gen hammer, than giving me a next-gen hammer to build a house. You know what I mean? It's like, my God, people. So, yeah, this sexiness, this illusion of, having the latest and greatest is such a false prophecy. I mean, it's false everything. It's just wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. ChatGPT, what do you think? So next generation, often refers to advanced or cutting edge technologies and solutions that represent an evolution beyond current offerings. In the context of cybersecurity, it can refer to next generation security technologies like next generation antivirus, firewalls, and other innovative solutions designed to provide more effective protection against modern threats.
Okay. Yeah, I did a little bit.
Did you just throw up in your mouth?
You're off the mark.
It burns when you swallow it back down. Well,
Yeah,
I
no more
think
gens.
it's
No more
great to use
gens.
more gens if you already know how to use the gen you got. Yeah, I mean, if you give somebody who understands these basic functions of a firewall, give them, a next-gen firewall, and they'll make that thing do beautiful, amazing things, just like a skilled carpenter would with an advanced tool. If you give it to a toddler, give a toddler a bandsaw. It ain't going to work right. You're going to lose a hand. But if you give, a skilled carpenter a first-generation bandsaw, they'll make something beautiful for you. So, yeah,
They'll
so it's
design the
dangerous
Sistine Chapel.
to have next-gen anything if you don't understand how to use it right.
Yeah.
Great points.
We have time for one more. Let's do another one.
How much time do we got? You want to do another one?
One more.
All right, let me see if I can pick the best one here. Actually, maybe. All right, let's just do what is threat hunting?
Threat hunting. Well, using context clues,
Bingo.
we're hunting for threats.
On the surface, that's what it probably seems like.
That's a perfect way to
How is
answer
it
something
different?
too. It's like
I'm
if
gonna
they
add,
ask
I'm
you a
gonna
question, just flip the words around. You're like, that's actually true.
don't trust anything. Hunting for threats. How is it different from pen testing? I guess
That's
I'm gonna answer the
not
question with
legal.
the question.
I don't
That
know
will
what to
get
say. I
you
wasn't
in trouble
expecting that.
here in Mexico, the current culture of which I operate.
So threat hunting is different than pen testing because threat hunting is like Elmer Fudd.
Wackly wabbit.
You know, Wascally Wabbit.
I keep walking around. Yeah.
Pen testing is like, I'm falling short on analogies. Past
So
Elmer Fudd.
penetration testing is hacking yourself.
Oh,
Penetration testing is hacking your.
Wesley, where?
So it's looking for
No, there you go.
threats that are usually within a demarcation, right? So you have to define what the scope is for the threat hunting exercise. Oftentimes it's looking through an entire environment, sometimes looking for evidence that something malicious is already in your environment. So you're hunting those threats down with the hopes of, eliminating them. And going back to the firewall thing, if you want to know one of the best techniques ever for threat hunting, lockdown egress on your firewall. Because all your threats are remote threats, right? They're not actually usually they're not physically like in your building. They're coming from somewhere, whether it be, China, Russia, wherever. They're coming from somewhere. And in order for that, for their threat to actually be a threat, they have to be able to communicate with whatever it is they put in your environment. So if you lock down egress, you just close that door for them. So in a threat hunting exercise, that would be one of my highest recommendations would be, let's all the exit points from the network, let's lock them down. And at the minimum, let's increase logging so that we can see the traffic that's going out of the environment so that we can figure out if there are threats here. And that would be a starting point. It goes deeper, but so pen testing.
Yeah, so then you lock down egress and then look at all the logs
Exactly.
of denied traffic.
Why is this workstation
right
trying to communicate with this application or this website or this whatever? And oftentimes you'll find that those are the command and control points. So that's why when I was talking about doing Project Broken Mirror, this whole nother weird thing I do, it's the steps in getting to, securing critical infrastructure. For instance, if you want to simplify it, it would be map your attack surface. So take an inventory of all the ways that people could get into your environment because they're all coming from remote. Lock down the ones that are the most common entry points, which would be single factor authentication entry points. The third step would be to lock down egress on the firewalls. Now, none of these things cost any money. You know what I mean? They don't cost you anything. You don't have to buy the Nextgen anything, but you have to do the work. And so then when you lock down that egress, then that's when you'll find the threats, the most common threats within the environment. Back to the answer, penetration testing is hacking yourself. Threat hunting is looking for people that may have already hacked you.
So one's reactive and one's
proactive. I mean, I would still engage if I was depending on the security program and how mature we were. I would probably engage on regular threat hunting exercises as a proactive. And then obviously if you found an actual threat, then it would be reactive.
In good old ChatGPT, they agree with some of the things you guys have said. Threat hunting involves proactively searching for signs of malicious activity or security threats within an organization's network and systems before they can cause harm. Unlike automated detection tools that react to known threats, threat hunting involves human analysts actively seeking out anomalies and indicators of compromise.
Analyst, not analyst.
Human
it looks like analyst.
There you go.
What is an analyst? What is an analyst? You should have ChatGPT. What's an analyst? I don't know what that is. No, these
ANALYST or IST.
I wouldn't use Google for it. I would use ChatGPT.
An analyst is a professional who examines and interprets data to provide
change
insights,
the Y to an I.
solve problems, and make recommendations.
See, this is the hacker mentality, by the way. This is what we do.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, okay, I get that. What happens if I change this or change that? What do I get back? It's a lot of that work. Does it even give you an answer? No.
Looks like there might be a typographical error in your question.
That's the way I meant it, ChatGPT.
No, but yeah, that's good. I think I think strongly, things that you've been preaching, Evan, about, starts by having the same language, which still has a long way to go out there, and Lord knows how we can close that gap. But a lot of buzzwords that make a lot of us cringe when you hear people throwing them around, and then you just have to keep asking. But it goes back to that fundamental thing I think you brought up last time, which is like, I guess you can define it however you want. Let's just get to an understanding of what we're talking about.
Truly,
together,
for people that are listening, if you want to be an excellent information security professional with a long-term career, you would do things right. Right? We wouldn't fall for, I need a next gen whatever, not knowing what the hell the next gen whatever is. You know what I mean? So for people that really are interested in doing things right, which hopefully is all of our listeners, and I know it's the three of us, it's take a step back for a minute. This fear of missing out, you're not missing out on a damn thing. What you're doing is you're being distracted by your current, when I ask, what's the one thing I can do? Master the art of situational awareness. That's so important in all of this. And when you get distracted by next gen I went to a conference and they were preaching this new XDR, blah, 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 blah. Or you're talking to your pal, and he's like, oh, we should get this blinky light, blinky thing. Those things all become distractions. They all become distractions from the situational awareness that you're looking for. They all become distractions from what it is we're actually trying to do here. My purpose as a CISO is not to buy the next thing, just for the sake of having the next thing. The purpose is to understand risk, to consult the business to make those good information security risk decisions, which requires situational awareness, which requires me to stay focused, and then for me to implement those risk decisions. Now, if they ask me questions about what's SIM, what's SOC, what's whatever, I need to, if I don't know the answer, admit it. Let me go, or you can even say something like, let me get you the best answer. So you're not admitting that you don't have an answer, because you may not.
All right.
That's okay. You don't want to tell them some bullshit. Don't make something up. But that's awesome. Let me make a note and get you the best answer to that question, right? Because a lot of times those questions will come up in the context of other things you're talking about anyway, right? So you may be giving a presentation, you may be discussing some other topic, and then that comes up as something. Defer it. let's get through this topic. I made a note right here that I'm going to get you the best answer for that. I'll get that to you, before the end of the day. Learn those types of techniques. And it's funny because that's what I'm working on right now is the CvCISO C class, right? The communications course. And it's techniques like that you don't lose face. You actually build more trust with people. It also buys you time to take those simple distractions, because it is a distraction. When you ask me a question that's irrelevant to the topic that I'm talking about right now, that is a distraction, right? If I'm focused on understanding risk so well in this organization that I can consult you to make really good risk decisions, and then these distractions come about, you have to identify that those are distractions and put them aside. Nobody's going to give you any shit at all if you don't have the latest and greatest next gen whatever in your environment. They will give you shit if you missed all the fundamentals. Most environments today, you can lock down super well what you already have. You don't need to spend another dime on any next gen, anything, any technology, anywhere. Just configure the stuff you already have correctly. So that's the point, I think. And that's why I love having these discussions, because I think there are lots of people that want to do the right thing in this industry. And there's just so many distractions, so much pressure to do all these other things. When you just stay focused on what it is we're here to do, you do better. You have a better career. I mean, everybody's better.
It's a saturated vendor market too. Like I mean, and it goes all over the place. I mean, information security solutions are just everywhere. Last year I went to the Right of Boom conference in Vegas, and the amount of vendors there was astronomical. And they all overlap. They all and something that you brought up in the past, Evan, too, is just like, if you're not careful, they will sell you. They'll make you feel like you need this, even though you weren't shopping for this. And, it's not the most significant risk. And so it's like, you got to be disciplined to be like, do your risk management. What is the thing we're actually trying to mitigate right now? And intentionally figure out, shop for the tools if you need a tool, or the best way to mitigate it.
And you'll just keep chasing.
Otherwise, people will take your money.
Things. And completely being distracted from what actually matters, in the environment. And I know I've always been kind of hard on vendors. I don't blame them, because they have to make a living too, right? The people that are selling you things are on quotas. They have to meet those quotas. They have mouths to feed, just like you and me. The problems become when, it's the overall vendor itself, right? I don't know how they can sleep well at night knowing that they're selling, or they have sold things to people that don't work, or that they don't need, or that whatever. But I think a lot of vendors don't even know that. They don't even realize that they can't see this bigger picture. And that's why I don't go to conferences, really. Because I would go to a conference because I want to learn something. I don't want to go to a conference to be distracted by things. So before you go to a conference, because I think it's okay to go to a conference too, knowing fully aware that I'm just interested in seeing what other vendors are doing. I'm interested in seeing the blinky lights. But I know this going in, that I'm not going to buy any of these blinky lights. I'm not going to let it distract me from what it is I'm working on. Maybe there's a vendor there that the thing that I'm working on, maybe they can supplement that. Or maybe they can, you can automate things that I was doing manually on this thing I was working on. But the thing I wasn't working on was next-gen firewalls. My firewalls are working just fine. So when the next-gen firewall guy, well, look at all the cool blah, 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 blah things, and the big booth and blinky lights, and what they come, booth babes. Thank God we've kind of kiboshed some of that, but they're still there. What the hell? Not only are you distracting me with a piece of shit that I don't need, but now you're playing off of my, what are those instincts, my human instincts, to make me look at a sexy woman. I mean, talk about distracting me from what I'm trying to work on. Holy shit. So I think if, people that go to conferences, you need to ask yourself before you go to those conferences why you're actually going there, and set some boundaries for yourself on what I'm not going to tolerate.
Yeah.
If I'm going there to learn things, well, then I'm going to go to the damn breakout sessions. And I'm going to go to those breakout sessions with discernment in my head already that, is this guy actually teaching me something, or is he teaching me how to use this tool, or is he trying to sell me that tool? I don't know. It's unless you like being sheep.
I wonder how many poor unfortunate souls bought a product. They were talking to the booth babe, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I want this," and then and then they come to onboarding and they have to spend an hour with Hank, the engineer, and they're like, "Oh wait, what is this tool
When you go to
again?"
like RSA and
What'd
they
I
have
buy?
like these gimmicks,
Hey,
like booths, like magic. I've seen magic shows. Like, what the hell does that have to do with anything I'm trying to do in my job? I mean, it's entertaining, cool if I'm here for entertainment, but sometimes you go to these conferences maybe for entertainment, and that's fine too. But know that going into it. I've seen booths like one of those booths where they have the spinning dollar bills and things, and you got to grab as many as you can. I've seen those at security conferences. I saw a guy with a dollar bill on a fishing line doing this, fishing for people. Like, the hell kind of crap does this have anything to do with anything I'm trying to do?
Nice.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
Well, I do want to put in a plug for a good conference to attend, and that is Hacks and
It is.
Hops. It is on next week, and the reason I'm putting a plug in for that is because on Thursday evening, the 12th, CvCISO is going to have a meet and greet for those that are in attendance and want to gather together to
I'll be there.
have some appetizers and drinks together.
This won't be published.
That's true.
We'll get the word out in some way or fashion. I will be sharing that. That's
I'll
true,
be there.
because this
Meg,
doesn't come
you'll
out
be
until
there.
Friday. So.
Oh man, I'm so excited to see you guys face to face. Yeah.
Yep.
I'll be
And
there.
the thing about this is, and I would love anybody's input. If you did go to this, holy shit, there's a bee right there. If you did go to this, and it's after, and you felt like you were sold, you felt uncomfortable, and like that, do let me know, because this is meant to be an educational, a social event. Obviously, there's vendors there, but if any one of those vendors tries to sell you something you don't need and plays that slimy bullshit, you got to let me know, because we'll put an end to that. Well,
He'll run him over with
education's
his
a big
truck.
thing, man.
He'll
I
run
mean,
'em
you
over
want
with
these
his
people
truck.
to come here and feel like they
No,
got value out of going there, not like they got swindled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm bringing one of our technicians. Hasn't been to a ton
I
of
have a sport
conferences
coat.
and stuff, so
Nice.
he's coming with.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
you gonna wear?
Yeah, FR Secure Mate.
Seriously?
Is it a
FR Secure made me a sport coat,
I'm
and it's got
definitely getting a
FR
picture of
Secure
that.
lining in it and everything. Yeah, and they had a custom fit. Like they had some dude
Oh, cool.
touch me way more than I like. They said he said he was measuring, and I was like, I
No,
don't know if
that's
you
how
can
you know
measure
it's
that, but he did. I feel dirty. I had to ask for forgiveness afterwards, but
Oh,
whatever.
gosh.
I have to. That's
Sir, stop wiggling.
All right.
I have to measure this.
all right.
We are going to
Yeah,
hit stop
Thank you
record
guys.
right now.
Love you guys. It's
Thank you.
after
CvCISO
the end of a
listen.
tough week. It's a huge blessing to see your faces and just be a part of this
Yeah.
with you guys. So thank you. Love you too.
Yep.
Take care. Bye.
Mhm,
Love
you
you,
too.
Evan. All right. See ya.